I was a complete, like, I'm going to be honest, I was a coward. I got really scared really
Yeah.
easily. In those younger days, I was really scared. There's plenty of times where I, just had fear running through me. I did not know how to channel or control it and didn't have an influence who taught me how to channel it or control it. I won and only black belt tournament I ever did. I did the forms portion. There was no breaking, a board breaking portion, but then it came to the sparring. I got so scared that I walked out of that gym, like I quit. Like my,
So you moved to California with $300 and nowhere to
yes.
live, and you did this, and I'm quoting here: determined to change and become a better person and make something of
Yeah.
your life, which is a very profound thing to do. And I feel like taking that type of risk isn't something that most people maybe know how to do in the first place, have the courage to do, or are willing to throw themselves into that type of unknown. So maybe you can talk to me a little bit about what led you to that point to where you're like, you know what, I'm doing this. $300 for my name,
Yeah.
let's go. And then we can talk a little bit about what happened after that. So like, what was it that brought you to that point?
Heartbreak. I mean, like any, like I feel like this is like a heartbreak's definitely a common one. It could be a bunch of different things, death of someone, this or that. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. But for me, I just at the time I graduated college. I graduated Northern Illinois University with a degree in kinesiology. Super pumped on that. And I had a girlfriend who I had been dating for a long time at that point. Last part of my junior year, all throughout my senior year of high school, and all throughout college as well. I went to Nevada, did my internship out there, which was amazing. It was my first time getting out of Illinois and living out somewhere else. So I lived in Nevada for 10 weeks doing that internship. During that time, my first MMA coach, he moved to San Marcos, California, so very close to San Diego, California. And then I had an uncle who lived in Northern California, more like the Bay Area. And during this internship time, so I was in Vegas training, everything like that, still in the relationship at the time. And then after my internship was over, visited Southern California for a week, visited Northern California for a week, and actually had opportunities from both all angles, Nevada, Southern California, Northern California, like, hey, do you want to move out here? And I said no to all of them because I was with my girlfriend at the time and I was just completely devoted to her. And we were going to do this together. Long story short, it just came to a point where we both, she still had one more year in college. So she was still at NIU. I was all done and I was living back at home and just, working at the typical title boxing club, teaching cardio kickboxing classes.
Yeah.
And, I already went to Nevada and I started training with some really like awesome gyms and some really cool people, bad martial arts gyms, MMA gyms, jiu-jitsu gyms, stuff like that. And I think I just really started having like a bad attitude, I think I just changed a little bit. I had an attitude about me and, she,
Like an
I
ego?
wouldn't say an ego, but I was like, I'm done with college. I don't like taking steps back. I go forward. I don't take a step back. I go forward.
In your fights too. Yeah.
That's just how I am. I don't like taking a step
Yeah.
back. I like going forward. Now that's not, and you and I both know that doesn't mean like success or anything is a linear progression. We know that. I was done with college. And I think my attitude, and I did this internship. I've been to now Nevada and Southern California, Northern California. I tasted these places, and I think I just had this thing about me, and she kind of felt that, and she just kind of got over me, because I really started changing too. Like I was like, I want to be on this all organic diet now. I was like training twice a day. Like I was just getting
Yeah.
crazy. So, ultimately, it just led to us breaking up, and that like put me to zero, like
Really?
base level.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I mean, she helped me out through a lot of stuff in high school and in college. Like, we really needed each other. Our backgrounds with our families weren't the most traditional or the tightest with her family and mine. Um, and it was a difficult family life at times, and we were really there for each other. And that's what made it so hard when it's just like I'm gone. And I was like,
And at that point, were you already fighting as an amateur? Were you fighting
I
professionally?
had
Was this all at the
Yeah,
same time?
I had fought four amateur fights at this time. So I was kind of I hadn't fought in competition in a little bit because I was focusing on finishing college and then doing my internship. So at this point, I was 3-1 as an amateur and no pro, or didn't even think about really doing pro yet. Yeah, when she just decided to break up with me and call it off, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to choose one of these opportunities. So I literally called my MMA coach who moved to San Marcos and was like, hey, dude, do you have an opportunity? Do you like, because he like talked to me about coming out there, and he knew my girlfriend, he knew how serious we were, so he didn't have high hopes I would just move just myself. And then when she broke with me, I came back to him, oh, I need something, and it was crazy because I remember him, he flew back for something. Like I can't remember why he came back to Illinois, but he flew back, and me with my good friend Eddie Escobar, we were out to eat at this like bowling alley place, and he was talking about, he's like, you want to move out? I was like, yeah, I want to move out to California. And he knew like outside person, like he needed to like make me commit. He just knew who I was as my
Right.
coach. He'd been through those fights with me. He got to really know me. He knew me at 19. I'm now about 22, going to be 23 years old, and he's like, all right, I'm going to put you in a place where you can't back out. So he knew exactly what to do. He booked my ticket in front of me. I just bought your ticket. Boom, you're going one way. See that? One way. And so I was committed. And not only that, my buddy who was with me, Eddie, he was already committed to move out there, and I was going to live with him. I was going to be the guy on the couch. So it was a 3 bedroom
Yep.
apartment. I was going to be guy on the couch, guy number 4. Yeah, man, and that's literally what it was. I told my mom I was leaving. I had to just I had to do something different. I had to go somewhere else and try to change something. And Southern California, man, it was just so beautiful, just so attractive looking. I'm like, and coming from the Midwest, I'm like, man, if I'm gonna go somewhere, I'm gonna get as
Yeah.
far way west as possible because it's, in my opinion, just a more beautiful part of the country. So I was like, I went to the coast as far west I could get it.
It's
It's
nice here,
beautiful.
man. I mean, yeah, especially the contrast of somewhere a little bit more rural, like being right on the ocean. Not to mention the quality of combat sports training out here is pretty
Absolutely.
significant. I mean, not to say that there's not quality gyms and cities and amazing fighters that can literally come from anywhere in the country, but the concentration in especially in Southern California near San Diego of top-notch competitors, availability to constantly be competing, whether it's on a regional level, whether it's just kind of recreationally, and then the professional and amateur level. There's eyes here
Absolutely.
that there might not be in other
There,
places.
absolutely.
When you think to, I mean, that time in your life, like you said, you got into this when you were 19
Yes.
as an amateur. A lot of people, if they're gonna get in a fight, they're probably getting in a fight sometime between 15 and 19,
Hmm.
right? Like if you end up in that situation, were you someone who sought out that like those type of engagements, altercations? Were you quiet? Like what pushed Steve Kozola, 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid, black belt in Taekwondo, to take this on as like a more serious endeavor, even on the amateur level? Because we both know from, and me a lot less than you, the difference between like getting in a street fight and training, the difference between training and competing, the difference between competing and then competing regionally, and then that and being an amateur, and the difference between that and a professional is like, I have no way to express that to people that don't train at all. How do you go from that to
Well,
there?
small steps. So, I mean, at first, it's like I did Taekwondo from 7 to 12 years old. I got my black belt right around like 12 years old. Then I kind of stopped and went into more traditional sports. Got into, yeah,
Football.
football and track and baseball were my high school sports, mainly football and track. And during that time, though, like, so bring it back to when I was doing Taekwondo. I competed.
Yep.
So I did tournaments where there was, 3 events in Taekwondo. Basically, you had board breaking, you had forms, and then you had sparring. And I was actually really good at board breaking. Forms, okay, decent in, but then sparring, I was a complete, like, I'm going to be honest, I was a coward. I got really scared really easily. In those younger days, I was really scared. There's plenty of times where I, just had fear running through me. I did not know how to channel or control it, and didn't have an influence who taught me how to channel it or control it. My first black belt tournament, my one and only black belt tournament I ever did. I did the forms portion. There was no a board breaking portion, but then it came to the sparring. I got so scared that I walked out of that gym. Like I quit. Like my
Wow.
master like tried to like, hey, you can do it. You can do it. Nope. My mom, hey, you can do it. You can do it. My dad, who wasn't always there at my competitions, everything like that, happened to be at this one. He was like, come on, you can do it. And I was like, nope. Like I just like I had the fear, but I was like, I at myself, I could not see myself competing with these black belts. And I'm, and
The irony
right.
is
And I'm
insane.
12 and I'm 12 years old. And I remember that. And I remember getting in the car and like looking out the windows or driving, I'm being severely disappointing in myself. Like, and just like, wow, like
Just you as a kid on a
yep, just
personal
very
level.
just like I knew I
Yeah.
quit. Like I knew that I didn't even
Yeah.
try. Like I quit, and I was so broken down by that. Like I actually ended up not even going back to Taekwondo again. I just kind of lost the spirit for it, lost the spunk for it, and everything like that. I lost my confidence, and I ended up not going back. And did, like I said, more traditional sports. You know, football, track was the main focus. Got recruited. Played 1 year of Division 3, and then during that year of Division 3 football, um, you know, I fell out of love with football, and again, not really aggressive, but at college football, I definitely saw a different level of aggression that again I actually wasn't
Yeah.
comfortable with on the field. Like these guys, you know, who were now like I was, 18, 19 years old, and I was now playing
Yeah.
against, or my teammates were in their 20s, and you saw that level of aggression and competitiveness, and I was like, damn, like damn, I was playing wide receiver, and these linebackers and DBs were no joke.
Oh yeah, they're trying to
Dude,
light you
light you
up.
up, and
Light you up.
they'll
Yeah.
grab you, and they'll do cheat moves, and they're gonna
Yeah.
see how you react. And I didn't react the right way at the time. Like, I would be like, I'd be complaining when you just need to be like, you need to shut up and play. Like, who cares? Go play.
Right.
But I didn't know. Again, these are all lessons learned later, through fighting actually. But so ultimately, I decided I'm not gonna do football anymore. I didn't like, I wasn't getting along. Like, the college I was at wasn't my fit and everything like that. It was a smaller college in my hometown, and I was like, I want to get, I mean, even if it's just a little bit away, I want to get away. I don't want to be in my hometown anymore. So I grew up in Naperville, Illinois. This college was called North Central College. That was in downtown Naperville, Illinois. And so I need to get away just a little bit. And my girlfriend, who I'm referencing at this time, she's a year younger. When she graduates, she ends up getting a soccer scholarship to Northern Illinois. So I was like, okay, I'm going to transfer and go with her. And I had some friends that went there too. And it was like 45 minutes at home. Okay, good. Just away enough where I got some space, but I'm still close to where I can drive home and be close to my mom if she needs me. So I was like, that's a good fit. And it's a little bit of a bigger school, get a little bit more campus like energy and like a little bit more school pride. Like I
Yeah.
wanted that. I had an older sister that went to Michigan State University, and dude, you go on that campus, everyone's just pumping up with school pride, and you feel part of a
Yeah.
community, like a part of something. Like yeah, like we go here, we're awesome because we go here. I'm like, I wanted that. Like I wanted that team and that
Yeah.
community, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna go to this bigger school. And when I went to this bigger school, so I'm going to NIU. I'm 19 years old, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Like not a student athlete for the first time in my life. First time in my life, not a student
Right.
athlete. So I'm like, I'll pledge a frat. Like,
Yeah.
that didn't go well. That was absolutely awful. All they did was drink and party. And I was like, I was still with my girlfriend at the time. So I'm like, I'm not going to party. I'm not trying to hook up with anyone. All they're doing is drinking. And I'm like, this is college. Like, I don't have a problem like drinking a little bit, but you guys are going every day. Like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Professionally, they're
yeah.
amateur
Like
drinking. Yeah.
I can do like Friday night, Saturday night. I'm with you, but every day else, like you're
Yeah.
finding other reasons. I can't do this. But so then I decided like, hey, I'm going to get into martial arts again. The UFC was like up and coming at the time, and I was like, man, like this is cool. Like martial arts, one-on-one, weight classes. I don't have to worry about big people. I was like, this seems like something like a hobby I could get into and start finding interest. And just slowly but surely, just start kind of reaching out the little branches that you have. And so like I was like, I looked at NIU's clubs, and they had a jujitsu club and a kickboxing club. So I went and I tried those out, and the kickboxing club was absolutely crap. And went there like what like one and done day, like it was just terrible. But the jujitsu
Right.
class, it was pretty cool, and the jujitsu club, so it had like these just terrible mats laid out in the gym there, and I probably went there a handful of times, and a couple of times there was this big bald head guy had tattoos, and he was like he would like teach a class, and he's kind of a badass guy, had that vibe about him, and during those 5 classes, I definitely learned that like okay, like you gotta learn some skill. Like you can't just
Right. Right.
wrestle. Like you can't just do that.
Yeah.
And so just got really interested. So I just like anyone. Okay, I'm gonna Google what's around me, and the only thing I could find was like this address that was like Peak Performance MMA in this address. So I went to this address, and I saw the same guy, that bald headed dude that was in the jujitsu club. Like he was at the gym. I was like, hey, like I'm looking for MMA. He's like, yep, like right here, we're doing it. And we just had a group of like ultimately just four or five guys. I included our coach and we made it like a little team, and we started training together, and we all put our little thing. Like I had a Taekwondo background. My coach was a four-stripe purple belt in jiu-jitsu and wrestled. My teammate, who was 10 pounds lighter than me, he wrestled, was a state champion wrestler in Illinois and wrestled a little bit in college, and he'd help me out with the grappling, and just made a little team and just started training raw and hard. Like raw and
Yeah.
hard, 3 hours a day. Like you came in, hour of strength conditioning, next hour of striking, next hour of grappling, and then we'd do some like rounds with that.
What were you guys doing for, I mean, with that kind of training output, as we both know, and probably a lot of the listeners, like that's a high demand on your body. Obviously, you're younger,
Mhm.
so your recovery just in general is going to be better there. But were you guys thinking about food? Were you thinking about hydration on deeper levels? Were you like, what state of contemplation were you guys at for nutrition and
At
performance at
at
that point?
first, so my whole amateur career, I would say completely novice amateur, not knowing anything. Like just keep like we didn't even
Dude, that blows my
like well,
mind.
I mean, yeah,
That's
well, I
crazy.
mean, you're not 18, 19 years old, and
Yeah.
we weren't doing this like 5 days a week. It was probably more like three or four. I think it was like a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday type of thing. So it wasn't every day. Um,
But you're going hard,
hard
right? I mean, you're not showing
hard
up
as
for like the
fuck.
evening class. Yeah. Yeah.
Hard.
Like you guys are trying to hurt
Oh
each other.
yeah, like we're there
Yeah.
to fight and we're there to compete. And this is just, and really the cornfields of the Midwest, like we're some
Right.
farm boys. We don't know better.
Yeah.
Like we were
Right.
throwing
Yeah.
we would throw leather and we would grapple hard, but you really don't know what you're made of unless you're going to close to 100%. So don't even think about competing if you can't handle going as close to what 100% would be fully padded in the gym with your teammates. And we knew that.
So yeah, what's your perspective on this? Because this is it seems to be a kind of a hot debate in mixed
Yeah.
martial arts. It's just like what percentage do you spar at? What percentage do you train at? And when I think of this from a coaching perspective, the regulation of intensity makes total sense to me, right? Because if your goal is not fighting, but if your goal is to, for example, get stronger or faster or more powerful, you're going to want to purposely regulate how hard you're training in different phases so that you can achieve that one thing. The difference is when you're doing that, no one's trying to punch you in the face. No one's trying to choke you out. No one's trying to put you to sleep. Your heart rate is manageable because you can always stop. When someone's trying to hurt you, or you perceive that someone's trying to hurt you, that changes hormone production, your adrenaline in your body. I mean, the things that, again, you don't feel these things unless you've been in that environment, even on a basic level like me, right? A non-competitive basic going as a hobbyist a couple times a week. What do you think about that now with the growth of the sport? We're probably going to see a lot more people that were really just baseline athletically gifted, but not
Mhm.
fighters mentally that are going to start to show up and train and everything like that. So, what is your perspective on hard sparring, hard training days, something that obviously shaped you and your
Mhm.
career and the future of the sport?
Um, that's it's always really tough because everyone's gonna have their opinion on that, and they're not wrong on it. For me personally, what I found is like when you're young, I think like when you're younger, hopefully you get into this when you're relatively younger, and you gotta see if you can handle it. You really gotta see if you can handle that intensity. But there's comes a point though, especially like after like you've done it for a while, like when you're older and this is like your career sport, where you really have to manage that because you only have so much
Yes.
damage you can really take, right? So everyone's got to find, okay, there's a starting point of like, okay, I'm going to do this. Well, you have to build up to a certain point of skill, of intensity, of this before you can kind of start going down and start kind of managing it a little bit more for the
Right.
longevity of it. Man, fighting is hard to make long. And that's what you're doing is if you're trying
Yeah.
to, not spar and be as intense, you're trying to promote longevity, which I totally get. But at the same time, if you're not bringing that intensity there, you're going to be overwhelmed when that fight goes and that person's going at that full go and that full clip.
Yeah.
And it's really, really scary. I mean, there's always a different feeling when you're in there. When that door locks and you're looking across and they're not wearing shin guards, they're not wearing elbow pads, knee pads, and neither are you, right? So when you go shin to shin, you're going to feel everything, right? When they
Yeah.
slam that knee into your nose, you're going to feel it, right? Like that's a totally different thing. And so like you can even go as hard as you like 100% in practice, but you still don't fully know until that equipment is off and there's no
Yeah.
more teammates there anymore. There's just a ref that is going to make do his best to make sure you don't get severely hurt, you know?
It's so insane. I mean, it's funny because I can only provide the perspective of an enthusiast. I'm a fan of martial arts, right? I love this. It's an important part of my week. When I come in on a Saturday, for example, I'll tell the story of like the first time I ever sparred
Hmm.
with you on a
Yeah.
Saturday. Showed up. I had done striking maybe for 6 months ish in your class. You basically taught me everything I currently know about striking, and showed up and trained on Saturday. So Saturday you run the class at 3 sparring rounds of 3 minutes where there's no takedowns or anything. It's just like Muay Thai. And then you let us go through 3 rounds of MMA style striking,
Hmm.
right? Like, you want us to start taking down because you want us to experience what it's like to anticipate that threat, what it's like to provide that threat, what it's like to defend, the changes in your intensity, heart rate, adrenaline,
Yeah.
all that when you bring that into the table. And I just knew from having been a coach for so long, like I could see how much you were regulating your intensity, right? I mean, down to like damn near you just walked in the door out of bed and you're very purposely creating an environment where we can learn and you're there to teach us. But at the same time, you want us to know what we're doing. So you'll throw punches, you'll throw kicks, you'll actually take us down and you'll provide that. But it's very clear that you're choosing the exact degree to which you're expressing that. And we were going, and I could tell you're just having fun. And I was making the same mistake over and over that I couldn't see. And then, bam, you just very lightly, almost in a nice way, exploited it, right? And hit me in the side and dropped me. And it was like, in that moment, I was like, wow, this dude barely touched me with intent to let me know, like, hey, you keep leaving this open. If you keep doing that, I'm going to exploit it. But there was no mustard on it. You know, you didn't follow it up. It was just kind of one and done. And I realized if if there were no pads, if this was unsanctioned, if there was no ref, that is a fucking terrifying situation to be in. And the difference between training and competing, I can really only imagine that. I agree with you on this intensity thing. The longevity is the biggest argument there, right? Because you want your career to last a longer time so you can provide for your family and get more wins, get more money, etc. But if you walk into that situation, you've never experienced what it's like to actually feel like someone's trying to actually hurt you. That would just be the most unwelcomed door to open.
Yeah. It's rough. Um, but man, so it's so important though, that just like, those days, like you're talking about those sparring days, like, that it grows you so much and gives you that perspective as much as you can with besides like not competing, right? And that's what I want. Like that's what it's there for. I've even taken out the kickboxing rounds. We're just going straight MMA now because I'm
Right.
trying to motivate people who only are one dimensional in their martial art to become multi-dimensional. Like I see too many people
Yeah.
doing just striking or just jujitsu, and I want to show them you need to do both. Even if you feel like you're just, I mean, it is better to be a blue belt and a blue belt. Let's just say theoretically, it's striking
Right.
in the
Right.
round,
Gotcha.
than being either just a black belt at one and a white belt at another. Because
Right.
that blue belt is going to be able
Yeah.
to take down the striker and then submit them. Okay. Then on the other hand, it's like, okay, the black belt who can't strike, he's not gonna be able to take down the blue belt who knows how to anti-wrestle, who has some decent striking. It's like,
Right.
and I see we know, like, and I know who's guilty of that in our own gym, and there's plenty of other guys guilty of that. Like they're black belts on their waist, but they're white belts in the fight world. And I'm just like, what's the
Yeah.
point? Like that's complete ego. Like if you're just that jujitsu, dude. You're walking and just doing your gi and you're just picking your rolls and doing that stuff. Like you have a very false sense of confidence, just as much, if not more, than those white belts or those people who don't train out there. Like you got to be competent in your stand. But like, we talked about, as you get older, like you don't need to be striking and doing live rounds and everything like that in your 40s, 50s, or whatever. You
Right.
don't need to be, no. But you do need to still train it to whatever capacity and intensity that you are capable of. You need to. That's what
I would
whatever you're
agree.
capable of.
I remember when I first got into jujitsu, I had I knew people that had been doing it for a while, and they always would kind of, and I mean this is just a small group, right? So this isn't necessarily true for all people that do jujitsu, but they would go, oh, if it ever popped off, if this situation ever went down, it would be it would be over before they even knew it. And I really subscribed to that. And I bought into that, and I was like, wow, especially as I started doing it, and I saw like, whoa, really little people are choking out and submitting much bigger people. This is the answer. It totally makes sense. But then you realize that's if it's on the ground. That's if you're in the parking lot and someone tries to steal your wife's purse and you run after them. They're not going to turn around, look at you, respectfully slap your hand, and then sit down cross-legged on the ground. It's not how it's going to happen. So if you are doing jiu-jitsu because it's something you do as a hobby, you want to compete, you enjoy it, that's beautiful. If you're doing it for self-defense and that's your only thing that you're doing, you're not really learning how to defend yourself to the fullest degree, because it's probably going to start on the feet.
Yeah. And
so you need to know what that feels like. It's different.
very, very, but it's scary, right? Striking is scary, wrestling is scary, getting
Yes.
thrown, getting taken down, getting hit. It's all scary, and naturally that's what happens, is that people go away from their fears, and it's my job as a coach and as an instructor there to try to create a process, a system, and a procedure that introduces them to that at a rate where we can slowly start building efficiently and effectively. You know,
How did you manage your fear in, let's maybe
Mhm.
rewind to being at Team Quest. You're under the tutelage of arguably one of the greatest fighters of
Oh
all time
yeah,
in Dan
oh yeah.
Henderson, and you were surrounded by athletes like yourself who are very committed, who are in this because it's really what they want to do. It's who they are. It's what they will do. And we're not talking at this point about a place that you could kind of just walk into and do a boxing class that evening, right? I mean, you are surrounded and are yourself a killer. What was the fear regulation like for you in that setting? Because you're not the biggest guy in the gym, right? But you have to spar and train with your brothers in arms
Yeah, for
essentially, right?
sure.
And build each other up and learn. So how do you manage that?
So the same way you manage any fear is you realize you have to just come to terms with it and you got to do it. And regardless, like, I have this tattooed on my back under the footprints of both my kids. Um,
Right above your waist, like a
no,
butterfly,
that's a
or
different one. That's a different one. All right. But it says face everything and rise, which is an acronym for fear, right? So it's just like everything else. Like I have that. Yeah.
yes.
So either fear is forget everything and run, or it's face everything and rise. I remember reading that quote very early when I was, kind of just first moved out here. I'd read quotes a lot to get my mind right and listen to a lot of motivational people to just keep me, driven and going. And yeah, and it's just like anything. When you have to spar around with a tough dude, or you're just going, or it's just like you're just getting into that gym. It's like, hey, I know what days I'm going to Team Quest. I know it's always going to be intense. I know there's always a chance, and a more than likely chance I'm going to come out there really tired, really bruised, or whatever. I have walked out of that gym with my nose broken. I have walked out of that gym bleeding, and people have walked out of that gym a lot worse. But like, we're in the pro practice. That is what we are there for. And that team of Team
Yes.
Quest, and just like you said, Dan Henderson and all of our guys there, we had a reputation of being tough, of being really durable, like just tough people, and we really held to that. When I was with that team, Chris Curtis, who just had a great win last night, he was in there. Sam Alvey was in there. Sean Strickland is in there. Dominic Reyes is in there. Ashley Yoder's in there. I'm in there for not.
Who are all
It's
those
like,
guys?
and I mean, and then so many people like, that maybe heard of, haven't heard of in Bellator and PFL World Series fight, like all that. Like those are just like the UFC names that most people, would recognize, right? But then you also have people that would visit and come in and all that stuff. And it was one of those things where, when you're in that environment, you try to take on the attitude of everyone in the environment. So you look around and you're seeing those
Yeah.
killers, carry themselves with pride and confidence. You're like, okay, that's how I'm carrying myself too, because I am here and I am with them. And I remember especially after I got my first major promotion win with them with Bellator, dude, I got all the love and respect in the world from those guys, which meant everything because I
Yeah.
mean, those are people I looked up to. Those are my idols. And, they're finally like, hey, what's up, Steve? Like, oh, you know my name now. Yes.
Yes.
Right. Because,
What did that's actually an interesting point because you had mentioned earlier, right, that this relationship with your father was, I'll let you explain it more. I won't try to explain the relationship with your father, but when I look at community and what a gym like this provides, like it's strange. There really is a sense of family that you get in these places. Like even Gracie
of
Carlsbad,
course,
right?
all of them.
There's when you look at it and you run the numbers, the amount of hours that you spend there, the time, the conversations you have on the mat before, meaningful conversations that you find yourself in that you've have had, multiple times where training's over and you end up just talking about life, about things that are going on, mindset, even nutrition, whatever it is. It becomes a very nuclear place that you rely on these people. Do you feel like there was anything from your childhood that like led you to really fit in that type of setting and rise to the occasion of the people that you're around and build that community and like you said, it felt good when they accepted you on that level. Can you talk about that at
Yeah.
all?
Well, I come from a family of competitors. Like the males in my family, my dad, my uncles, my cousins, all of us who are boys, men, we are competitive. And I remember competing with them since I can remember. Like whenever we get together for family, we would be competing at something, whether it was, just bags in the backyard, dominoes, cards, family games, like whatever. Like we play to win, not to enjoy the game, not to bring each other close as a family. We played to win, to have those bragging rights and all that. And when you won, you got the like the you're hoping for the praise and the attention, but most of the time, what you get just shit talking back, whatever. But you wanted to
Right.
win, so you had those bragging rights. So that was just like a very like just like kind of growing up from it. And then another thing is too is that I always wanted to get my dad's attention. My dad and I never lived together a day in my life. Him and my mom split before I even came out. So I don't have a single day under my belt where I lived under the same roof as my dad. Now I was always close to my dad in terms of like like he never lived too far. So um, I would be able and then regularly like I would especially when I could drive, I would drive to his house and hang out. No problem. I would do sleepovers there, no problem. Really got along with my stepmom, no problem. But, especially growing up and everything like that, when you have, I know this might sound bad, but like a part-time dad, and I mean that in
Yeah.
terms of like we just didn't he wasn't under we didn't live together. We did
Yeah.
so he lived in a different house than I did, and when it was that type of relationship, when you'd only see him every so often, like I really wanted to stand out to him in any way I could and
Yeah.
gain that approval too. So obviously, all those things kind of made me, it's like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to excel, you want to be the best so you can get noticed and get credit and you know get that attention thing. But it's very ego based too. But I also think it's a lot of primal stuff too, because what son doesn't want the attention and approval of his father on a deep level? I think we all have that to some sort of point. At least most of us do. Um,
Yeah.
so that really just always drove me to be a competitor to when I, was playing baseball and then football and track and all that stuff. And then just led me to ultimately that too, when I kept fighting, when we would get a team together, it was like coach was a dad and, your teammates were like my cousins and like my brothers and stuff like that, where it was like, okay, we're going to constantly compete against each other. We want the approval of coach and dad so we can, excel to the next thing. Right. So I always wanted to stand out as much as I could and get the notice and approval of being one of the best fighters in the gym, and I wasn't by any means, but I always came in and I trained hard. I don't know how to not train. I mean, I'm trying to train more smooth, as you know, but I've always kind of known to come in and train, train hard and train with that purpose because there's always a fight happening. Whether you didn't have a fight signed, when you're a fighter and there's going to be a fight sooner or later, whether you just have a contract signed and you have a date, or you just are a fighter and no one's going to happen, you carry that with you. You want to you got to beat that guy some way today. How are you going to beat him?
Right.
And you got to training harder, gaining more skills, accumulating the right habits, doing the right things, stopping the wrong things, all those things, like those all matter.
Can you walk me through what it's like to be in a highly competitive gym like that, under the eyes of a legend, with those people that you were training with, and what is kind of like a typical week? Maybe think about this more from the training side of it, of like, what's the structure like there when you're, let's say you're not, you don't have a fight signed. Of course, the mentality, like you just said, is there. You're always thinking about that, but kind of what is a week in a professional fighter's
So I can
gym?
only give you mine because there's like a base of like, okay, you have like, so for example, like Team Quest wasn't my whole entire picture. That was just a piece of the pie that was supporting and helping me build myself as a fighter. Now they were that main MMA team piece, but I also had a jiu-jitsu team at this time that was helping me just with my jiu-jitsu. I had a boxing coach at this time. I myself always ran my nutrition, strength conditioning by myself. So it was the accumulation of all those things. So I can tell you exactly what a typical week were for me. And it was more of like a non-linear style type of periodization with my strength and conditioning. And then I also had my routines with the gyms and my coaches that I worked at. So every morning I would wake up at about 3:45, 4 o'clock, and I would do the strength and conditioning portion. Monday, Wednesday, Friday was like more of a lifting base. It would be strength based, power, and then muscular endurance. That was my
Gotcha.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now that didn't always have to be in that order, but that's kind of was like one day would be strength, one day would be power focus, one day would be muscular endurance focus. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday from the strength and conditioning portion for that early workout would now be a cardio focus. So I'd do one long run and then a fartlek run or like a hill sprint, and then it'd be like a straight up sprint. So again, those different types of things, and again, those could change as well. But again, keeping with the theme of like more of a long distance type, then more of a burst,
Right.
and then more of a straight sprint than full recovery. So that was the strength and conditioning side. Um, and then my second workout, the midday workout, would usually on 3 days a week, it would be going to Quest. And that would be usually like
Yep.
a main like striking focus day where it's like, okay, we're, going back and forth with striking combos. And then we'll do live sparring at the end, kickboxing to MMA. Another day would be like a wrestling base, whether it's on the feet or on the wall. A lot of cage tactics, a lot of wall tactics, offensively and defensively, ground and pound style of fighting. Just a lot of clinch too. And then that last day would be like jujitsu type of focus, like a lot of ground stuff. So that would kind of be like my week with that, just striking, clinch, wrestling, and then like a little bit more jujitsu. And then the other 3 days, as far as that middle workout, would be like pads, some sort of like pad work with my boxing coach. And then the late night workout would be jujitsu, you know.
Are you just eating like an ungodly amount of
Oh yeah.
calories through
Oh,
those weeks?
absolutely.
You got to be just crushing
Yeah, I
food.
would eat like so I would follow the Dolce diet, which is not it's very
Mike
Mike
Dolce.
Dolce. Yep,
Mike
yep,
Dolce.
Mike
Yep.
Dolce diet. I remember meeting him in Las Vegas, like when I was,
You
dude, I
geek out.
geeked out. I fucking pumped up, and I sprinted. I was at the Throwdown gym at this time, and he was really like, I mean, I saw like other guys there that I knew, but he was a guy who was like following, like I was doing his diet, like
Yeah.
really like like really looked up to him, and he walked into the gym. It was like for anyone else, like they're Michael Jordan or anyone else, like they're like
Right,
walking,
right,
so I
right.
sprinted to him, and he was the nicest dude. We took a picture together, and I called my girl.
You shoot a single
Dude,
leg
not at all.
and
I just
just
wanted to hug him and just like say thank you. So, and he was just again super nice, and that's what I also loved about like
yeah.
as I was meeting these stars, Like I didn't know what to expect because they're all badasses and they were all so
Yeah.
nice. Like they're like, hey, dude, yeah, like they're
Well,
so
dude,
nice. They're so
it's funny.
nice. They're nice.
When you beat, who was it that you beat? Jake. You knocked the shit out of this dude. Jake,
Roberts.
thank you. That was where you had the post fight call out on
Yeah,
Dylan
yeah,
Dennis, right? So it was interesting because and I didn't watch this fight when it happened, and I met you much after, right? But in this post fight, you just talk a lot about like being yourself, just be who you are, dude. And I mean it's funny because you're calling out Dylan Dennis is like the most brash, right, ostentatious dude with this open Hawaiian shirt and like
yeah,
the whole shebang. I mean, people who know Dylan Dennis know Dylan Dennis, and you call him out as just like, dude, just like be you,
yeah,
and you are that way. You are you, and it shows. Even in situations like that, like you meeting these people and you're looking up to them, and they are realizing you're realizing that they are who you thought that they were, and how nice is that they're a real human. That Mike Dolce, for example, you come up and you're so excited to talk to him and talk about, dude, I'm doing your food and it's helping me and all this stuff, and he's like normal, cool, and
yeah.
humble about
I
it.
was like,
How
oh, it was
nice
great. I was
is
like, hey, it
that?
would honor me if you take a picture with me. He goes, no, 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 it would honor me. Like I mean, he's like this, like it would honor me. I was like,
Yeah.
God, bring it in.
Like
It
that's
was
so
so
cool.
cool.
It's good that
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of fighters, especially too, they don't. It's not glamorous, man. It's really not. Like
yeah,
especially I mean, we're talking now like 10 years ago too. Like I mean, it's growing more and more and more and more. Like there's nothing like the growth in mixed martial arts and how much more money's coming into it. And the top
it's
stars are
crazy.
really now starting to get more celebrity and that type of lifestyle. But, these old school guys, man, they were humble as can be because they were, they weren't making these big bucks or anything like that. They're all just trying to make it
Right.
and do what they love. And anytime they could see someone doing the same thing, they saw part of themselves in it. Like, hey, you're just a passionate person trying make it taking the hard road but choosing to do what you love. And they respected that,
Yeah.
and especially if you came in humble or you came in nice and ready to work. You know what I mean? Which I always did because I was like, I'm not I have that's just not who I am. I'm not a shit talker, but at the
Right.
same time, I have no room to talk shit in this room. You know what I mean? There's so many great guys there, and I'm a
Yeah.
55 or a small 55. I'm probably walking around like 165. You got Dan and Sam and Jared and other big, like, dude, these guys are huge. They're 200 plus, 220,
Yeah.
and they can knock you out. Like you're just listening to and making sure. Yep, yes. All right, that's what we're doing now. Okay, got it. Yes, sir. All right, go, 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 go.
It's I think that the issue, one of the issues is that the sport kind of breeds it. And I mean that in with with a lack of compensation for what you're really out there doing. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, you're truly putting your life on the line as close as you possibly can, but before you're like jousting or something like that. And the compensation isn't really adequate for what you're out there doing. So you're left with two options. Do you latch on to the marketing aspect of it, and do something like what Dylan or Colby does, right? Is just become this WWE character to take advantage of the any publicity is good publicity, right? People hate me, great, they're going to watch. People love me, great, they're going to watch. And start to carve out a little bit of a piece of the pie for yourself because the organizations aren't doing it. And maybe that's a business reason. Maybe it's because it's hard to grow this business to what it is today. And it takes a lot of money. And so you don't allot some of that cash to the athletes when it really should be there and you want to put it there, but you can't because it's somewhere else, whatever. How do you as a fighter hold true to being yourself in those situations and avoiding the temptation to become that WWE guy? Because I'm sure it's got to be there, right? Like this, you see the writing on the wall
Yeah.
that you could become something you're not to get more money.
Well, I could speak again from my personal experience. Well, I think I was in that situation in the like that last part of my career. I was on a two-fight losing streak and lost four of my last five. And keep in mind, I started out my career 8-0 undefeated, and now I just lost four out of my
Right.
last five. Won one, lost two now, and I remember my manager telling me, he's like, Steve, we need to give these guys more than I know you knock guys out and you fight hard and you love America, but and you're a family guy, but like, I need something more. And I was like,
This is your
this is my
manager at the
manager,
time?
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's me, man. And I don't want to create or conjure up something that's not me, for the
Right.
sake of staying with a promotion or selling more tickets or anything like that. Like, one thing I always, that always kind of stay with me is like, you have to take ownership of every decision that you make. You're responsible for it. You can have it in your ear, your manager, this person, your coach, your parents are telling you do this and this, but if you have to live with it if you listen to that and make that decision. And you can't blame them saying, hey, they told me that's why I did it. No, you ultimately decide to do it yourself. And I knew as I got older, as I got more mature, and especially as I met my wife and we had our own family, was that they're always going to be first and they're always going to be what's most important. I started and was already a professional fighter and already had multiple professional fights under my belt before I met my wife and had my son. So they came into this life, but I always knew when I got married and said my vows, when we had our son, and I looked at him in the first time in his eyes, and when I knew we were going to have our second child, and I was going to have my daughter, I was like, they deserve and need the best family man there, not the best fighter. So it was my choice to be like, hey, could I not even necessarily conjure up something and create more, but could I put more into getting out there and, for the
Right.
sake of this and this and doubling down? Yeah, I could have, but like you're talking, it's so hard to, make money in this sport. I always worked as a coach. This whole time I'm working as a coach and any other side job I can do. I was also a professional fighter and, doing other odd jobs like valeting cars and, working at machine shops, other things like just to make it. And yeah, so I always knew I had to, I always was doing something. So I just asked myself, like, could I pivot at this point? Like, was it worth it to me to pivot and to change? And I found that point where it was. It was like, uh, it's this whole like, especially when you're a fighter, it's as much as you have a team behind you. Like I had team coach, I was still just promoting myself, me, and I knew what it would take to be in the UFC or to be at the top level of the UFC Bellator and be the top guy, and what that takes, and what type of lifestyle that involves, and what type of commitment that involves, and what the sacrifices on your family. And for me, I decided it was not worth it to me. So I was just going to pivot and go full more on the coaching aspect and be more of a family man. And couldn't have been more happy with that decision for multiple reasons. But yeah, I mean, everyone's got to make that choice, and it's really tough. It's a really tough thing because it's really hard. Like I said, you're not making a lot of money, so there's not everyone's Conor McGregor, right? Or not everyone is the Diaz
Yeah.
brothers, where they have this amazing thing that they push, and they're great at it, and they just go with it, whatever. I mean, it's tough, man. Some more.
But at least, yeah, I appreciate the honesty about it. I mean, it doesn't, it doesn't sound like there's regret in your voice. Like to walk away from something like that's a hard decision. One, it's your identity. It's who you are. It's what you've done for so long. You're good at it. It's not like you got punched around for 15
Yeah,
fights, right? You're knocking people out in fashion. I mean, some of your finishes are it's kill switch on. Like you can see the moment that you rock them, there's zero lag. It's like you don't hear the turbo like spool up when you press the gas pedal. You're just instantaneously on this person. So you're built for it. You're good. You're making a name for yourself, and to have that kind of clarity to think about it in the situation, like it's more important for me to be this person. It allows you to walk away truly from it,
correct.
right? And I think that that's something in athletics, in any sport. When you walk away, you are walking away from a portion of who you are, who you've spent years cultivating. You've sacrificed social obligations, friendships, trips, travel, all these things to make this version of yourself that's a highly competitive athlete. And that's a hard thing. It's in many cases for people, it sparks depression because you rip your own rug out from underneath you. But it seems that when you made that decision, you made it with a ton of clarity. You knew that that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And you never felt pulled back into
Not
it.
once. No, I get asked. That's probably one of the most common questions I get asked. Or, it's like, do you miss it? Do you want to fight again? Or I bet you miss it, or I bet you want to fight again. And my honest answer is like, no. And it's not. I mean, it's your ego and the glory of winning that ultimately miss, right? When you train so hard, or there's such this big buildup, and then you have this a moment of elation and euphoria of like, oh man, I just won. Yes, it's one of the most amazing
Yeah.
feelings ever. Um, but then, man, like, what happens? The fight's over, and everyone's like, "What's next? Like, what's next?" And you're only
Yeah.
as good as your last
Yep.
win, too. And I
Right.
saw it from, yeah,
Yeah.
like, dude, like, and you see that from everyone to some sort of degree, even the ones that you love, right? It's like
Yeah.
like even ones you love, right? Now my wife and my kids, and that's what I noticed. Win or loss, they were always there for me the exact same.
Yeah.
So why would I sacrifice the people who love me unconditionally, win, loss, or anything else for the life that's like you're only as good as your last win and as much money as you make us? Like,
Well, and it makes sense why you see some of these guys pander around with their schedule because, dude, if you're not everyone's Glover, right? Not everyone's going to fight until they're in their
it's
40s with
fucking
an
crazy.
insane
It's
dude,
crazy. It's crazy.
I can't express how ludicrous that is. Not to be doing like take any sport and do it when you're 40. Bravo. Take the most brutal sport in the world and do it when you're 40.
At champion
Bravo.
level. At champion.
Now do it at
Yeah,
champion
yeah.
level. Dude,
Yeah.
like that's
But look,
it's insanity on a
yeah,
different level.
and I kind of relate to it like with the military guys a little bit, like you do with professional athletes, is that everyone's going to have their time in and their time when they were really
Mhm.
good or okay or bad, even whatever. Everyone's gap is going to be different. Some guys only serve or go 4 years. Sometimes it's, 8, 10, 20, whatever. Some people only do professional fighting for sure, or any type of professional sport for a certain amount of time. And it's only the rare breed that really stay in it past 10, 15, 20 years and then get set up with something perfect right after. Like very like the smallest percentage you can imagine. Most people, you got to pivot and do something else. You got to have
Yeah.
something else there. And yeah.
What was that?
No, go ahead. No,
Sorry,
you're
go ahead.
good.
Go ahead. What was that moment for you in the ring? And maybe this was physically in the ring, maybe this was out of the ring
Mhm.
for you. And I asked you this because it's very apparent the type of fighter you are when you watch you in a fight. You are on, like scary dude. You're there to take someone's head off. That's a crazy speed to operate at,
Mhm.
right? Like you are in sixth gear all the time, no matter what. When did you feel the shift that you started to back off from that and you started to make the decision towards leaving the sport and backing off into your life now that you're obviously very happy with and
Yeah.
it's great? Was it a one single moment or how did that come about?
A little bit of a gradual progression of multiple big things kind of talking to me. You got to listen. You got to listen to, I mean, your heart, your inner voice, your God, the universe, whatever. All of
Yep.
it, some of it, whatever. You got to listen. So after my last loss, I did a lot of listening and just a lot of thinking and a lot of praying and a lot of going back because I kept a journal when I first moved out here, a lot of reflecting and going back to those raw thoughts, those raw moments of I'm sleeping on the goddamn couch. Like I'm technically homeless
Right.
out here. I don't have a car yet. Like
Yep.
and what I'm thinking and what my motives are back then. And it really was a gradual thing of like, like I had my son with me and Bradley, my son was probably about 3, 4 o'clock at the time, 3 or 4 years old at the time. And I noticed that because there was this point in the day where I would have to drop him off and go to practice. And after that last fight, I would drop him off and go to practice. And then there was a day where I'm not going to drop him. I'm not going to drop him off today. I'm not going to go to practice, and I'm going to stay with him. And I did, and I loved it. Like I was like, wow, like
Okay.
I just got to be a dad here and just spend time with my son, you know? And I didn't have to go beat up today. I just,
Right.
it was just like, and I still miss it. And it was just a gradual thing of that, really. It was like, I was like, like instead of going to practice, I think I wanted to, because I saw my son growing up right before my eyes, and he was talking more, and he wanted to play with me more. He wanted to do all these things, and he needed me now. And I was just like, man, that was really meaning a lot. And then my
Yeah.
wife, like, I think it was not even a couple days after my last fight, she's like, I'm pregnant. Like I was like, oh, and this is about to happen again. And then we found out it was gonna be a girl, and I was like, oh man, like, yeah, man, it's just like you just realize what's coming and what's next, and you realize how important it is, how meaningful it is to you, and especially me, I wanted to be the best dad I could possibly be and the best husband I could possibly be, and that meant more to me than being the best fighter I could possibly be. And fighting brought me, and again, on these reflecting things, a couple of big things happened. Let me go back to another couple big things. So, I'm playing with my son more. That's a big thing. Um, I'm starting to realize that missing practice doesn't bother me as much as missing time with him. That's starting to
Right.
really,
It's like a shift
it's
of the
really starting to
trade-off there
it's really
on,
starting to
yeah.
show its face a lot for me more now all of a sudden. And then another thing is my grandma passed away. And my grandma was 96 years old at the time, and man, that woman is the foundation of my faith. I grew up a Christian my entire life, and early communion, confirmation, you name it, like did it all. I mean, uh, really, because that was a lot of her pushing it, and everything like that. But I knew she was always praying for me. I knew that she would always be thinking about me. And I remember her because I think I came very close to making this decision before I had my last talk with her. And one of the last talks we had, she asked me, she's like, are you still fighting, or are you done fighting? And I told her, and I just felt it. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I got it.
And you had fights on the books
Nope, nope,
still or
nope. I didn't
no?
have anything going. It was kind of like just a pause
So
period,
it's not, yeah.
because I knew my wife was pregnant and everything like that. And just kind of like that thinking point. Again, that's kind of like point of what am I going to do? Pivot point. You're either going to go all in or you're going to get out. That was the point I was in with my chips. It was like you're going all in
Yeah.
now, like boom. Okay, we're fixing dot 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 dot, like
Yeah.
or we're like we've won enough, and we're gonna
Yes.
take what we've won and leave. And that's why I ultimately decided to take what I wanted and leave. And what helped with that, on top of my grandma passing, was I found my journal that I kept when I first moved out here, and
Yeah.
it specifically had these goals written of what I wanted to do and accomplish with my fight career when I was out here. And it was like turn pro, and it was get into a major promotion, and another thing I wrote was like it was to build a skill. It was to become someone I was proud of, like build confidence in myself, like become someone who you would admire and that you would truly be proud of, and give yourself a gift that would be worth giving at the end to everyone else. Everyone else. And that was powerful. I remember reading that and almost being in tears because I didn't see UFC champion anywhere on it. I didn't
Yeah.
see millionaire anywhere on it. So at my most raw moments of what do you want out of this, when I'm on the plane and I'm flying here, like what do you want out of this experience? Because you're going with nothing. What do you want to get out of this? It really was. I needed to change who I was on the inside, give my find my identity, who I was, like, who am I? Um, and just build yourself all over again. And I was able to do that. And I liked who I was
Right.
now. I like because more than ever being a fighter, like I'm always going to be a fighter, I guess, in some sort of way. Even though I'm not an active
Right.
professional fighter anymore. But more than anything, I am a martial artist.
Love that.
I am a martial artist, and I'm the level of martial artist with the type of knowledge, skill, and intensity, and enough of a fighter part of that martial arts where I feel very happy. So
Yeah.
I am really happy with that. And once I came to terms with that, like that really, like it wasn't so much pulling the rug out of me, like as you said, like it wasn't that. I was like, hey, I'm like
Yeah.
I'm just not an active cage fighter anymore, but I'm always a martial
Right.
artist. And I was proud of myself with what I've done, and I was like I'm a damn good one too. Like I was okay with saying that. I was like
Dude.
and
Yeah.
I'm a damn good one too, and that's what I wanted too, is to like really be able to say
Right.
that and mean that. And not as like an ego way, like just like I know I believe in my skill set and what I can do from not just a performance aspect, dude, from also now from a coaching aspect as well. So those roles just really filled me on top of now being a husband and father of that too. So it's like, hey, you're just not an active cage fighter, but that's it. You're still a martial
Yeah,
artist. You're still damn good one, and it's still a damn good fighter. And now it's time to give your gift to others. And that's just what that time is now.
it is important to, I mean, it's a hard perspective to have for the majority of people. It's like to realize what you've accomplished when you have set out to do something and have gratitude about actually doing it. To be able to objectively look at something and say, this is exactly what I came out to do. It might not be what someone else would want to do or what people think that you should do, but you did exactly what you wanted. You came out here, you became a professional fighter, you got off the couch with $300 in your pocket, and you did everything that you wanted to do. And then to be able to see that actually for what it is and not have any regrets about it and step aside, it's almost like a stripe on a belt, right? It does add a different depth to your character of what you can then teach other people about. And you can teach them about not having an ego in competition. Who knows where that ends up taking you in your life and the lives that you're able to impact because of that.
It's already happening.
And it's something that fighting's given you.
It's already happening, man. I mean, you see the military guys and the police guys that we train with and that we know. I love training those guys. It fills me with so much passion and just so much purpose to train our military and to train our police officers and everything like that. So I really have found, I mean, not just training others, but specifically them as well has been amazing and really filling. So yeah, it's, you just got to find the next thing. And, I get just as excited and proud of knowing I'm about to whether it's training someone just here or like those special moments where I get to go into base and train them there. Like those are all amazing times and amazing moments, and being surrounded by true warriors or creating warriors is truly what I'm here for. And your type of warrior is going to be as unique to you as your own DNA. And that's what I want to do is just want to bring out and enhance your warrior, whatever that is. But all warriors have a code and all warriors, have that certain like ethos that they carry. And that's why I want to bring to as many people as possible. But it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I really do feel like I wish that martial arts were central to almost any upbringing. Like I didn't have martial arts when I was a kid because skiing was so enveloping my whole life. Like it was everything that I did. And on top of that, I grew up in a small town and there wasn't martial arts. So it wasn't like the option was there and I wasn't going. It just wasn't a thing. And wrestling at that time, it wasn't. I honestly think that the UFC has made wrestling a much more prominent and like cool thing that it was not. No one talked about wrestling back then. It wasn't cool. It wasn't. Now you see the application so much in fight sports, how valuable it is to have that kind of base for your fight. And I would say you're probably not going to see tons of fighters in the future who don't have a jiu-jitsu or a wrestling understanding as like a prerequisite. And not having that, I always wanted that. I always wanted martial arts because I knew that there was something to learn there that I didn't understand. And having been involved now with just jiu-jitsu for the past like 2.5
That's not true.
years.
Not just jiu-jitsu. You've been training striking too. So
and striking now too.
That's important though.
In the bigger picture.
I mean, I know that their striking training has there's many different levels of it, but dude, you're still doing it. So please give yourself that credit.
Fair.
Because you're still doing it.
So you're right.
So martial arts training, right? Not just jiu-jitsu.
Martial arts.
I mean, obviously we both are.
It does give it gives a perspective of like your ego has to be checked because the very first instance that you don't check it, you get woken up real fast, really, really quickly. And I think that that's an important thing for everyone to understand, men and women alike, is what happens to you when your button is pushed. How do you respond? Because until I did jiu-jitsu, until I walked into jiu-jitsu that first time I didn't actually know. I thought I knew. I thought I knew how I would act and who I would become. And to be honest, I thought it was big and bad. I thought I would just handle every situation with strength and do it. And I got destroyed for 20 minutes straight by someone who weighed 40 pounds less than me, and they didn't but break a sweat. And I was shook. I was like, what? What on earth just happened to me? I need to know more about this. And I wish that more people could have that experience to see who they become and then learn how to regulate that person up and down. But it's not, I think it seems so intense that a lot of people don't want to try. But it's so wild when you do train with someone who's training for their first time. Someone's coming in and they're doing like their first class or their trial. And from the word go, you feel that tension and angst that it runs through their entire body. It's so wild. And you can physically feel it, but you can see it too in their eyes, in the way that their body is. And you just realize in that moment, like, if this were in a real situation, you do not want to be an untrained person in any capacity, because the gap between trained even a little bit and untrained is Grand Canyon.
100%. Absolutely. Well, it's like, I mean, we're trying to approach these people and be like, and they're like super scared no matter what and super intimidated. Um, and we're like, yeah, like you're gonna like, we're trying to like let them calm down, but it's like that's the last thing. They're like, to them, they're entering a battlefield. To us, you're entering
Right.
like our like chill spot, our happy place, our playground. But to them, they just entered a battleground. And we're trying to like, yeah, like
Right.
we're gonna wrestle, we're gonna get sweaty, and we're gonna try to hurt each other, but it's okay because when we tap, we let go, and it's all good. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? What do you mean? Like their emotions can't handle that. Your emotions don't have a place here. Like you can like
Yes.
they're not welcome here. Like you're gonna get pissed off. It's not gonna do nothing. You're gonna get angry. It's not gonna do
Yeah.
nothing. Like besides just get you whomped. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's a hard thing for people too. Is like where your emotions are not welcome here, and your opinion is not gonna matter. And it doesn't matter how angry you get. You got to do it. If you don't do it and go through this process, it's not gonna happen. But you know,
Did you ever have a moment like that where your aggression got checked early on in your
all,
career or
all
early
the
on
all
in
the time,
training?
all the time. All the
Oh,
time.
really? Like
All the
repeated?
time. Yeah, all the time, dude. I was
Tell
one
me
of
a
the smallest ones.
story.
I mean, like
Tell.
it was like if you go to like my if like go to YouTube, look at my very first fight is in 2009. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm 19 years old at the time. Yeah,
This is the regional one.
yeah,
I
yeah,
watched
yeah.
this. Right? It's kind of like shaky footage from
Uh,
the side. It's not the pro
Yeah,
fight
it's not a
yet, right?
pro. Yeah, it's literally like it's me versus like
Yeah.
this little Mexican kid Armando Llanes. Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah, like
Yeah. Yep.
if you've seen that photo, like I had a black eye, like in that like the photo leading up, I had a black eye. It was from my coach,
Yeah.
like leading up to like we were holding pads and he got all like antsy, freaking like keep your hands up, bah, like just like literally nailing me. Yeah,
Really?
just like like he was just pad holding for me, but again like super intense, and my hands were up, so he freaking
Yeah.
jabbed me in the like legitimately left a black eye, like, and that was just
Before the fight.
this was like the week of practice like leading up to it, like so it's like
No way.
week of, and like we're holding pads, and like he was just getting like he knew I had a fight, my first fight coming up, and I just had my hands down holding pads. I just fucking put one on me, and that was and like okay, got it. Like
Yeah.
plenty of times like in Team Quest room where Fernando Gonzalez, Bellator veteran, like he's just took me down against the fence and is pinning my arm behind me. And there's still 3 minutes left, and I don't know how or any process to get up. And he's just and do this is
Face to your
whatever
face.
he wants. Like if
Yeah.
he'll hit me to the face, I block the face. He'll hit me to the body, and I would just like And then once I build the base, he's just gonna pull me back down again. And it was just, damn, I was just like, oh, like it was just, yeah, that would like, what do you?
What's the most frustrating thing as a fighter in a fight? Like, what is the thing that starts to roll back that mindset that you've built up in training camp that starts to make you question what you're doing, makes you question where you are, why you're doing this? Have you ever like, is there a
Well,
specific
I always
thing
knew,
in
I always knew why I was
fighting?
doing this, but like one of the time, like when I was fighting, I was undefeated, and like it was like my first loss. Like I was going against another undefeated wrestler, and I was the undefeated striker, and
Okay.
he put his game plan together and I did not put mine. Like I was supposed to keep it off the ground and punch him, and he's like, take him to the ground, don't let him up. Every single time he got me to the ground and could not let me up. Wasn't even doing damage, wasn't even hitting me, but just like
Just pulling you back down, pulling
I
you back
could
down.
not
Yeah.
get up. Could not get up. And then
Yeah.
every time I would get up a little bit, put me right back down. Control, control, control. Small little hits, not damage. Small little hits, not damage. Okay, Bill, up, right back down. And dude, and it was just so because I was like, round one, 5 minutes. Round two, 5 minutes. Round three, 5 minutes. It was 15 minutes of that, and I couldn't do it the same way every fucking time. And I got so frustrated because I was like, I saw it. Like I was like, this is my loss. Like, this is my loss here. Like and that's why I
Right.
saw it was like I'm in third round. I'm on my back. He's past my legs and there's 3 minutes left, and I don't know how I'm gonna win this at all. I've never won a fight in the third round in my career. Never won a fight by decision. Like, and I can't get up. This guy's pinning me. He's got me pinned, and it was what it was, man. I got up, and just had to take that first loss hard. It was like, damn, I just got like he beat me with his game, and that was just a striker versus grappler game, and grappler took me down and held me down. And now I could not get up, so that was very, very frustrating.
Did that make you restructure your training post fight? Like, did that become a focal
It was
point?
just highlighting what I already knew was there, which was like, hey, dude, I never wrestled in high school, college, nothing. And he was a Division II national champion wrestler and was out of a good gym. And it was just one of those things like, yeah, I mean, you just.
Dude, again, I go back to, when we train, there's two Steves that show up. One's the nice Steve, and then one's the Steve that's like, I'm not here to train today. And if I get that Steve, we quickly end up against this padded wall at Gracie. Whether we start in the middle or not, I know what you're going to do. You're going to put me up against that thing and you're going to make my life suck, right? And every time I try to get up, you're going to pull me back down. It gets really frustrating because you start to feel like you lose your abilities and you become helpless. And the feeling of helplessness is bad anywhere. In a combat situation or a grappling situation, it's quite worse because I have a relationship with you and a trust with you, and there's, you can always tap. That's a very unique situation to be in, right? If this were anything else, or let's say that striking was allowed, which is more realistic for an actual thing out in the street, you realize really quickly how helpless you are and how much exposure you have in that setting. And the frustration is a really weird element to deal with mentally in those, because no matter what your confidence is, your bravado, like anything about, when frustration kicks in and you can't do what you want to do, you see the gap in skill level and you feel it too physically. I couldn't imagine having that sensation in a ring, in a stadium, with the lights on, with the crowd, with coaches screaming at you, and you're getting punched in the fucking face while it's happening.
Yeah, but I think you and I could both agree to this, though. There's a certain, especially when you're at a high level, which I know you did multiple things, sports, especially at a high level. There's your zone, right? What do you hear and see in the zone?
Yeah.
Nothing. So it doesn't matter. All right. And that's the same thing, right?
Right.
So
like your blinders are on.
100%. Like I remember I had this, I had my biggest win of my life. I was at Allstate Arena, which is a pretty big arena in Chicago, fighting for my hometown, my first televised fight. I don't remember a damn thing because I was just not a.
Really? You're so composed in that, dude.
I don't remember. I can't after I won maybe a little bit, but like there's this whole big ramp I walked down to Thunderstruck and my name was on the board and the crowd was going nuts because it's like from Chicago.
You don't remember any of that?
Zero. I remember zero.
That is such a trip. I would bet that's probably pretty common.
Because I'm going into battle. Like I'm going in. Yeah. Like you said, like when I'm going in, it is really like zoned in. Like, my wife can attest to this too, but like a number of people who've known me for a long time have probably experienced me. Like they'll be talking to me for a second, and if I'm in a deep thought, I won't hear nothing.
Yeah.
They'll be like, "Hey," like something. I'll snap out. And dude, when I was fighting, that would happen to me all the time because I'll just be like in my head, I'll be thinking about like a sequence. Or I'll be thinking about a moment, and I'll just completely check out and be in that space and in that zone in my head and have the focus and have like the zone in almost like just subconsciously, and people have to snap me out of it. And they're like, dude, like you're sweating, like your hands are like, I was like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can really put myself into a deep like visualization part and really close everything
That's
out.
good. That as an athlete, that's a powerful skill to have. I remember skiing the same
Yeah.
way. Like the night before the competition, I would lay in bed at the hotel room and I had to be careful about how I visualized because if I visualized with too much intention, I could raise my heart rate.
Hmm.
I'd start to
Oh yeah.
sweat. I feel that pulse of like, and when you're trying to like, go to bed before you have a competition the next day, the worst thing that you can do is prevent yourself from
Yeah.
resting. So it's crazy though that you can do that. You can, with your own mind, bring yourself into this place of like readiness, this ready state. But that fight specifically, you rock him. And like I said before, there's no delay in the rock into the all out and like end this thing. And that's something that occasionally you'll see fighters struggle with is that lag time because in real time you're measuring a very important thing, which is your gas tank. You know you're in the first round. There's still 2.5 rounds to go. You know you need energy, but you trust in your training and your abilities. It was like instantaneous. How do you build
Well, I
that?
think, I mean, you know this now from training a little bit. You can feel when someone's like, you can feel their energy. You can feel if they're still fighting, if they're not fighting,
Yes,
how hard. Like I knew as soon as I hit him that I was like, oh, he is just like done.
done. Yeah,
And two, like I would have so much fear and built up in me that if I felt like I hurt him, I was like, go, like get it over with, like get
right,
the
right.
fuck out of there,
Yeah, yeah,
like get out, like win and get done. Like that was my attitude. Go in, win, get out. Any way,
yeah.
fastest way. I didn't care. It just happened, one way or the other, either way it happened. But that was always my mentality, and that's why I've never won by decision. I never won even by a third round stoppage. Always within first two.
Yeah, in violent fashion. Was there anyone you can think about in your entire career that you really wish that you got to step in the cage with?
Oh, like just like oh, like a person who I never got to fight and did. I mean, not like specifically. No, nothing specifically.
Yeah.
No. Besides obviously Dylan Dennis, that would have been fucking awesome. Like I wanted it for that reason because I was like, but ultimately I knew that didn't help my relationship with Bellator because I was kind of calling them out. I'm like, you're bringing this fake fucking what to get viewers? Like this is
Yeah.
stupid. They're like, hey, stop. Like
Right.
no,
Oh, did they come and ask you to not
No,
do
it
that?
wasn't that. It's just based upon how the relationship went after that. You can kind of tell that they were not too happy. Like, yeah,
Really?
dude.
They should have played that up. I
No,
mean, what's
but
better than
but
taking
but
your an up
because
and
if I
comer and
beat
they're
him, then he's done.
not good for their
Exactly,
stock?
exactly. They
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put a
yeah.
lot into this guy. That's why he fought a bunch of no names, and you can't even name the people that he fought, and they're terrible.
I mean, also, when was the last
Exactly, and
time
they're
you
still.
fought?
Why is he still signed by them? It's like it's ridiculous. Like but it's getting.
Was there bad blood there before that moment, or was that just kind of
No, it was
like,
all just like I knew I was real and I earned my stripes, and this guy was being fake as fuck and trying to just jump the line of every other hardworking fighter. Like I was like, and I told him I was like, dude, this is not jujitsu, this is MMA. Like you got to earn your stripes in here, But you're coming in as this jujitsu black belt. Like who gives a fuck? Fuck your black belt. I mean, like I give all the respect to Marcel Garcia. He's awesome, and respect to jujitsu and the sport is, but it's not fighting. There's a big difference between a jiu-jitsu match and an MMA fight, and I want him to know that. I was like, I will knock your ass out, and I meant it, and I believed in it, and he knew it too. That's what.
love it?
And I told him too. I was like, you can fight me at 55, which he never even hasn't even made that way. And I was like, or you can fight I was just trying to get an opportunity with my teammate, my buddy Fernando, who's in the corner with me. He was fighting at 170, or you can fight my buddy here. Like fight a real fighter. Like if you want to fight someone, fight a
Right.
real fighter. But I knew he was going to take, tomato cans. I said that, and lo and behold, they did that. And yeah, but yeah, whatever.
I love it. When you cut weight, you said you fought at
Yeah.
55, right? So what are you walking around at in the
Oh, dude, I
gym?
was the lightest 55er ever. I doubt that you could find a 55er that was ever like naturally as light as I was in the major promotion.
Were you like
Dude,
160 maybe
I was
in the week?
accidentally making weight after practice sometimes. I was walking around like
Really?
4 weeks out of camp, 162, 163, after practice, 158, 159, shit, having to, eat up. Like I should have been at
Right.
45 a long time ago, but I was winning and I didn't, and I was eating and that it was easy. So I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna keep it with
Right.
this.
So you weren't really you. What do you think about weight cutting
It's
in the
tough,
sport?
man. It's tough. It's a part of it that's hard to put away, but I don't know, man. It's tough. It is what it is. Like there's obviously a certain point of like, you got to cut to not be so small, but then there's a depletion point. There's also all these systems that have ways to do it, but
Right.
everyone has just like, it's gonna be the fighter's choice, and they gotta live with that, whatever what it is. And there's a consequence when you do these major cuts. There's a consequence.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah, yeah,
physiologically
yeah.
too. I mean, seeing people pass out on
Yeah.
the scale is really
It's really
scary
unhealthy to do
because
big cuts. Like that's like that's like, and the more you do big cuts, the worse it is for you. So you got to manage that, and it's actually showing too. You're seeing guys who are going up a weight class and still being successful. Like look at Jorge Masvidal. He wasn't
right,
doing good at 55, went up. Look at Conor McGregor, 40. I mean 45, 55, move up to It's like people need to move up. Like it's what happened. Like
yeah,
you just got to listen to your body. But then also too, like you got guys like look at Jose Aldo. Like now he's down at 35 and he's older and he's still doing well. It's like I don't know, like so it's like you can't speak for everyone, but then again, we don't know how hard it is, the give and take of it all. Like
right,
all we see is what the media is what they allow us to see. Unless you really know those
right.
people and talk to them or you are that person, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I saw so many things behind the scenes that you know yeah, long story short, man, I was happy with how I approached the game and how I got out of the game because I have my health. And more than having
Yeah,
millions of
dude.
dollars, if you have your health out of this game, you fucking won. So that's how I
Yeah,
see myself there because, man, if you don't have your mental, your physical health, that's tough. You're going to be battling and paying for that literally your whole life, and your family's going to be battling and paying for that your whole life. And it
yeah,
could be from getting hit too much, it could be from weight cutting too much, it can be getting bones broken, ligaments torn. Usually it's a combination, concussion
yep,
syndrome, all of that. And like you said, some people, like the longer you're in it, the more you identify as that, then all of a sudden it's taken out from under you, whether it's by choice or not choice. And then you're dealing with more deeper mental problems now than just what fighting brought you, but now these psychological, problems too. And I've seen it, man. I see it, and it's way, way, way too common. And yeah, and that's what you just said. Got to pay attention. Got to listen to your voice and know when it's your time.
yeah. It's hard to walk away from anything
It
in
is.
life, even if you know that it's the right thing to do. Does it still excite you to watch mixed martial arts?
Oh
Do you still
yeah.
enjoy
Oh,
watching
I love it.
competition,
Love it.
fights?
I love watching it. I love like any weekend that there's some big UFC fights on. I love going and watching it. I'm just not hyper invested like I was in. Like it's like, oh, fights are on, who's going?
Yeah,
Like, and I usually know if my teammates or my former teammates are fighting, and I'll go crazy for them, right? And
right.
really get emotional about which I love. I love it when my teammates fight because I'm just freaking, going super intense. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. But like, I again, it's now like I have a lot of priorities I got to get to
Yeah.
before it's like okay, like fight stats and things. Like, dude, I used to know everything about everyone. Now I don't know anything about anyone anymore.
Well, now you're doing some really cool stuff. I mean, like you had alluded to it a little bit earlier, but being on base, like I know that that means a lot for
Yeah.
you and being able to work with those guys
Yep.
and show it's an interesting perspective that I never had before being at Gracie because I'd never been around so many military personnel in my life. Like I haven't from being up in LA and then my grandfather was in the Navy in San Diego, but again, no like immediate connection
Hmm.
to it. And you see that from the outside of looking in, the perspective is that they are military, they are warriors, they are this different breed of human with capabilities and like to me almost seemed like a superhero. And then you realize like they're just normal humans. And where is their level of training? Where is it proficient and where are the areas of weakness? Because for them it really does matter to the most meaningful degree. Because if they are relying on hand to hand combat, that's because they're in a very dire
Yeah.
situation.
It means you've been overrun
And you
and
need,
you're out of
and you're
bullets.
able to provide them with these, yeah, and you're able to provide them with these skill sets and these tactics that you've learned from a lifetime of competitive professional sports and that mentality what is the difference, if you can think, between instruction that we might feel and see at Gracie, and then when you are in a room with military personnel? Like, is there any kind of shift in mentality, in messaging, and anything like that for you?
It's delivery. It's the intensity of delivery, and just intensity of your presence, and the intensity of drilling is always higher with military because they expect it and they're at that proper age for it too. When you're at, just a regular gym, you gotta, what's the age group? It could be a wider age range and people could be hurt or anything like that. Usually when you're going onto a military base, at least in my experiences, I know I'm going with healthy military age adults who have,
Yep. 18 to 22.
something like that, right? Usually 18 to 30, the latest, right? And then have some sort of background in something, whether it's from their military training or other. Usually it's a little bit of something and they're used to the intensity and they need the intensity. So literally, I
Right.
mean, the only thing that changes is not even so much like the techniques, everything like that, but you deliver it in a way of like, hey, this is important because, hey, if we're in the situation, we are really fighting for it. You know, if you're battling for a knife, if you're battling for a gun, if it just gets down to hand in hand, like we have to make sure these severe things could happen. And I mean, that can still be the case with, anyone, but I think they can, visualize a little bit better because they can put a situation that they've heard or experienced where, this could be relevant for them. So if you're doing CQC, you're clearing houses or anything like that, and you don't want to shoot someone, you need to get information. Okay, it's important to know how to establish a contact, like first, to determine what the threat level is. Okay, make your contact with them and then start controlling and manipulating their, and you don't want to terminate this threat because you need that information or you need them for whatever reason.
Right.
Or there was a mistake, whatever. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just you get the intensity is there because that connection of just how important it is, and they can usually connect it to a scenario is usually there, which brings it a lot more to light.
That was one of the craziest things that you ever did. Was one time we were training and we had I think Nick had someone in who was doing like knife defense. So they had
Yeah,
plastic knives, the
yeah,
little fake ones. And you're like, okay, we're gonna train normal, but I'm gonna put this here. And you place the knife like out of reach of both of us, but with the instruction of, look, we're gonna roll normal, but you want that, and so do I. And whoever gets it, then the round ends and we restart. It was such an unexpected elevation in the intensity that I just never, I mean, to your point, you regulate the intensity based on who you're training with, or the injuries, age range, all this kind of stuff. So you kind of know when you go into training based on who's there, what it's going to be that night. You have a pretty good idea of the intensity you're
yeah,
going to train at. And when you did that, it was just different instantaneously, because even though it's pretend and we know it's plastic, neither of us are going to get stabbed, you can roll with that and think about it, and it's terrifying. The thought of, I mean, I think about Anthony Smith's incident where someone broke into his home. This guy's a professional
yeah,
fighter, right? Just like yourself, years, veteran, big dude
yeah,
too, right? Anthony Smith's not a small guy. And in his own reflection and words on this altercation, it was exhausting, right? For him to keep this dude at bay, who was smaller
yeah,
than him, but just crazy and on some
yeah,
drugs and losing his mind. And there was a knife in that situation. That element of this other object there totally changes the landscape of how things go. And it's just another example of like learning the spectrum of violence that can happen in these
yes.
situations and what it does to your comfort level.
Absolutely. I was doing a Krav Maga seminar yesterday, and we were doing tactics where your attacker has a pistol that they're pointing at you, and your goal is to disarm them. All right. And I've done this training a couple times before, but it was all with plastic guns. Okay. This time it was with pellet guns, where
Like
yep. So I
airsoft.
actually have it with me. I'm going to show
Yeah.
this to you. So it's just a little airsoft
Yeah.
gun, right? There's a little, got your magazine. You
Oh,
just put
yep.
the little
Yep.
pellet in there, and then it's, same thing. And this is clear.
Right.
There's nothing in there. So, but you can see with the orange tip, it's just a toy gun, anything like that. But
Right.
but this was like actually what they're actually point this at us, and they could actually now fire a pellet at us. And dude, I have
Oh
marks
wow.
on me from failing. Like, we're trying to do these techniques.
Yeah.
And that was so eye-opening because now, like you said, like, and
Oh,
because
sure.
I mean, even though it's just a pellet, and from this, like, it still hurt. I have marks. And even just
Yeah.
that, like, it brought out the and you start getting twitchy, you
Right.
start getting
Right.
sweaty, like all that. And you're trying now, you have to calm down, think, and regulate now when you know you're going to get shot with something. And so just that perspective, like to your point of like whether, just like it just brought that intensity in there and that perspective of like, man, even, when you're doing a fight and you can be even doing the right things, but when a weapon's into play, there's just so many rooms for error and mistakes that can be made and just, just a level of, uh, yeah, just what bad things could happen just goes up exponentially.
When you walk into Target for, I don't know, any
Uh-huh.
store, do you walk in and you're in this mindset like 24/7? I've always been curious because I know that you think about
I'm
weapons
always aware.
evasion and combat
I'm
and
always
everything.
aware. I'm always scanning my sectors and seeing who's around, what's around, and identifying what I believe to be a potential threat if need be. Most of the time, it's
Like you're even if you're at like
yeah. I
lunch.
mean, it's a natural thing for me to just look around and who's in the room, what appears to be on them, and how calm and what's the energy like. You know, most of the time it's absolutely just chill as can be, and most people are carrying a pocket knife, and it's chill. I've never had a situation where I've been I've had to do anything ever. It's always been really positive. But yeah, whenever I go into a room, it's just again, this is just things I've learned over time. I've not even like super technical training, but whenever I go into a place, I usually like to know if there's multiple exits. I usually like to know like what's that. I just try to look and see these things naturally as a safe sort of practice, not in like a paranoid sense, but just so like okay,
Yeah.
there's an exit. Okay, there's this many people here, this many people here. I know this many guys, this many girls. Okay, this guy's big, this guy's small. Okay, I know this guy's a pocket knife. Okay, this guy's right-handed. This guy's like you can just start doing that if you're like especially if you're in the mood for it, because those are good things to know.
Do you think this just like question? Do you think that that's healthy?
Do I think that that's healthy?
And
Yeah,
I don't ask that
yeah,
with an
yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
I'm wondering.
I think it is because it's giving me situational awareness, but it's not bringing me anxiety. Like I'm not
Gotcha.
like my palms aren't sweaty every time I go into a public place, or my heart's beating, or
Right.
I feel this overwhelming sense of duty to protect the like not like none of that. I am
Right.
a very happy, chill person. I just like I go.
That's why I
Yes,
asked
yeah,
because I know
yeah.
that
So
you
I just
are.
go in like I go in there. I'm
Yeah.
just happy and chill. I just like just like anything. You just take assessment. Just
I had a my uncle was LAPD like motorcycle officer for like 15 years, and I was in LA with him one time. We went to dinner, and I mean, I see this guy. I've probably seen him once in the last 20 years, and it was this time. And we went to this place for dinner, and we sat down. He's like, can I have your chair?" And I was like, such a weird thing for my uncle to ask. I was like, "Sure." And he gets in. I was like, why do you need my chair? He's like, I can't sit with my back open. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, I gotta have my back against the wall. It was like a tick almost. Like at that level, he's like, I'm not going to be in a room with my back exposed, and I gotta see the exits. And I was like, okay, cool. And in my head, I was like, that's wild. He everywhere that person that he goes, he cannot live outside of those parameters of
yeah,
safety because of his of lifetime of seeing it play out badly by not doing that.
yeah.
You know, it's
Well, it's one of those
crazy.
things when you have that knowledge about what could potentially happen. It's like, hey, this is a really simple thing I can do that can really negate a lot of risk. So why not do it? And if I know how, then why
Right.
not? But like you said, at what point are you being, I guess, too much? And I guess I think
Right. Like
yeah, yeah,
neurotic about it.
and it's that's from person to person, and I think people
Yeah.
who obviously would know your job or your lifestyle would obviously sympathize with you more because but like a person who doesn't have a gun in their house would find me crazy knowing that I have a gun in my house. Like, why do you have a gun in your house? You're a fighter. Like, couldn't you just karate
Right.
chop? I'm like, I can't beat a gun. Sorry.
Yeah.
And
And you don't want to, I think that's one thing that when you do train martial arts, you kind of quickly realize that, or at least, I mean, I can only speak from my perspective here, especially not being a professional fighter. The last thing on earth that I want to do is get in an altercation, because I know from experience of training how unpredictable it is. And even with the limited amount of factors that we control for, how
yes,
unpredictable it is. You know nothing about that person. You don't know how trained they are. You don't know their skill set. You don't know what they have on them. You don't know how many people that they know. You don't know how close their friends are. Like, the list of things that you don't know is so vast, and the list of things you do know is so limited that it's like someone wants a fucking problem.
and that's why I feel like, and to your
Nope.
point, like you said before, like I wish that more people were exposed to martial arts because they would get that perspective alone of like it's not
Yes.
worth it to be mad or angry, to flick someone off, yell, or just create drama over something so small. It's like stop. Like you have, like you said, there's so many things you don't know over what things you think you might
Yeah.
know, and you're probably wrong. So don't roll the dice. Like it's not worth it. But it's not
Not
worth
worth it.
it. But that's what you got to you got to show people because you show people martial arts and they're like, oh wow, like they feel like they got this superpower. What do they want to do? They want to go show everyone their superpower because they're so proud of it, and you know, and I mean, I get that. There's that part you want to put it on display, all right. But to your point, it's the best to realize for that. Like when we were talking about, like I mean, if you have that itch, go compete, right? Go compete if you want to go.
Right.
But
Exactly.
if not, don't
Exactly.
go. Just trying to make trouble. For that reason.
I always laugh when I surf all over North County, and I've been surfing now for like 8 years, all up in LA. LA is way worse than here in terms of the mentality in the water. But I remember this too growing up at skateboarding. Like, people are just dicks in the water. They're assholes. And they're assholes at the skate park. The older dude who's really good at skateboarding, he's always getting in the way of everyone, and he's telling people to go fuck off because it's skateboarding. And that mentality, like that aggro mentality of people in the water, that they get protective over their local spot. Like, oh, do you own the fucking water, you asshole?
Yeah.
Come on. And in those moments, I've even been in situations where people start chirping at me and they're like, saying, you don't surf here all the time, whatever it may be. And inside now, after I just kind of laugh because I'm like, dude, this is so dumb. I'm like, one, we're adults. So if you want to stop talking and this becomes something where someone puts their hands on the other, now we're both risking assault charges, just for starters. So I don't want assault charges. And I'm sure that if you really pulled your head out of your ass and stopped being so angry, you probably don't want assault charges either. Two, if it does turn into some thing where now you have the energy to paddle all the way into the shore and then wait for me to paddle all the way into the shore, and then you want to get in another verbal argument, and then you want to make that argument physical, like, how stupid. People are so dumb. Like, why even be like that? Right? It could be a bar, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So fuck you, man. You spill your drink on me? No? Sorry
yeah.
if I did.
I'm thankful. I'm
You know?
thankful. I'm no longer exposed. I mean, like I don't surf, so I'm not exposed to that. And I hear about that all the time, how hostile that can be. Married, so don't go out to bars. I
Yeah.
really where I get my most frustrated is where I see people that don't train, or even sometimes worse, they've trained in a dumbass martial art that gave them a whole bunch of false confidence, and they're just trying.
Like,
You like yeah,
yeah.
and it's like
We don't need a dog on other
it
martial
just is
arts
what it is.
because we don't want to put that in the air, but I understand what
Yeah,
you're
I
saying.
mean, listen, if it's let me give you the big ones: Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, sambo, judo, jujitsu. See, any other big ones I'm really missing there? Okay, um, those are your big ones, right? If you're talking about, and this is coming from a Taekwondo black belt, Taekwondo ain't shit. Tang Sudo,
Okay.
karate at the highest levels, but you got to really integrate that with legit boxing and and if you don't have a
Right.
ground game with that, forget about it. You know what I mean? And it's just like if it's outside of that, it's probably not going to work too well. I mean,
Right. How good's your karate chop when you're on your
right?
back?
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
super good.
Yeah. So, that's what I'll see as a coach is that people come in with a false sense of confidence. But I also get the opportunity where I'm like, okay, well, if you have this, then we will spar, like, and that's what's great about having that option on for Saturdays. It's like, okay, you want to you have to then prove it to me, like, and it doesn't have to just be against me. Like, I have students like show me because they're going to try and punch you, kick you, and take you down and keep you down. So if your skill set can show me that you can do all that, then more power to you. But I've yet to see someone come with a
I was going to say, I bet the record's in like
most people
however
don't ever
many.
show up to anything because people don't want that challenge or that exposure.
Yeah.
But anyone who kind of comes and like, it's just like, and this happened in the Marine Corps base, guys coming with wrestling backgrounds and they're going through the martial art instructor course in the Marines and they think they're pretty good. Like, okay, well, we got, one of my guys coming in. So one of the guys was me and I came in and, I'm only 166 pounds and the lightest guy in this gym was 200, the biggest guy being 250, but they don't have the skill set. It's just a different level. So
Yeah.
you take them to town, you whip them up a little bit and they have like a whole new, like, okay, that's a whole new perspective. And
Yeah.
now they realize that there's levels to this and then they can move on more humbly and, and hopefully become martial artists and start training better.
Well, in the name of martial arts, Steve, it has been, I told you, man, it's going to fly by an hour and 40 minutes. Bam, just like that. It's been a pleasure having you on here, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. Your insights are always welcome. We have endless amounts of conversations when we're training, and I appreciate your mindset, your humbleness, everything, man. So thank you so much for being on
Thank
here.
you so much for having me, man. You've been a really pleasure as a person and a friend to get to know and be a part of the gym. We're just happy to have you, man, and super proud of you and looking forward to just seeing you in the gym Tuesday for our next roll, dude. It's all good, brother.
Yes,
All right,
sir.
man.
All right. See you,
Love you,
Steve.
man. Later.